LLC, Pestgeek Podcast, Living the Wildlife Podcast, Stephen Van Tassel, or their or his affiliates are not responsible for followers' use of the information provided here. Hi everyone, Stephen Van Tassel here, Wildlife Control Consultant, bringing you another episode of Living the Wildlife as part of the Pestgeek Podcast family. Glad to have you on board. Hope you had a great week. Do take a few moments, if you would, to subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell. Make sure you're getting every episode as they're coming out. You can also download my podcast at Rumble. Just look up Wildlife Control Consultant. Comments, thoughts, you can definitely reach out to me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. That's wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from you, even the good, the bad, and even the ugly. So this week we're having part 2 of my interview with Dominic Rubino of 10XBLT. And he's a business coach. So if you're just checking us out now, make sure you go back and get to the previous podcast to get part 1. And so he's talking about his work with business owners to help them push to another level or just improve their profitability and maybe comfort level with their work. Someone you may want to check out, a business coach, because sometimes you just need to hear another perspective about how to take your business to another level or to another comfort level for yourself. And that's Dominic Rubino. So stay tuned. We're here for part 2, and we'll even have some information on how you can get access to one of his free webinars. And so hang in there and stay with us for this particular podcast. Glad to have you.
Now, there's other people that are in this business and in any business because they just want to get by.
Right.
But they're not calling it that. They're just like, yeah, we do fine. But you have to understand, you have to choose your pain in this life. You got to choose your pain up front or later. And the pain of saying, I'm just going to get by is the pain of selling your truck and a couple of traps later, or selling a business that somebody says, well, you have a service route of this many locations. You have recurring contracts with these people, even if it's annual, right? You have marketing that brings in this. You remember those numbers I talked about? That's right. You have this many phone calls, this many appointments, this many leads, this many jobs, this much revenue. I might say, as an investor, I would like to buy that business. And since you generate, I'll just use a dumb number, $100,000 a year, I will pay you 4 times that amount to buy your company. And you go off in the sunset, do what you want. And now I'm going to go try and make that money back in under 4 years to get my investment back. And then because I'm so smart, I'm going to ramp it up from there.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges to the wildlife control side of the pest control industry. We're just a fraction of the pest control industry, because if you know anything about trophic levels is just a scientific term meaning the higher up the food chain, the narrower the pyramid gets, right? So obviously you have to have a lot more plants to have ants, and then more ant, and then you have fewer ant eaters than you have ants. So the farther up the chain. And so we're only, as a rule of thumb, only 10% of the pest control industry.
That's fantastic. That means you're valuable.
We're
means
valuable.
You're a specialist and I need you.
Without a doubt. The challenge comes in, and that is the bar for entry is so low. How do we create value in our businesses so that someone will want to pay for it? Other than, well, why can't I'll just buy the traps and set up my own company? In other words, why pay you $100,000 for your company when I can take that $100,000, go into a marketing campaign, because licensing is so easy. Buy a truck, buy traps, and you're all done.
Right.
That's a big challenge for us.
What you're selling at that point is a customer list and a history that shows that that customer bought from you once a year, or once every 2 years, or once a month. It's an HOA. They always have some call out. You know who's done this to us, and we all saw it happen, but didn't know what was going on, is Starbucks.
Oh,
right? Because now Starbucks has, well, they had the card, now it's the app, and everybody's got an app. But think back to that. Starbucks was a transactional company. And so they would give you a really good experience and say, please come back. Please come back. And of course you would go back because, they created that third home, that third place experience.
Right.
But then they said, what we should do? I wonder if they'll go for it. Why don't you pay me in advance for a bunch of coffee? I'll take the money, and then you got to come back.
You got to come back. Yeah.
Right.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
We can take really interesting ideas and apply them to our business. Maybe not not at par. This doesn't work there. But
Right.
if you open your mind up to the possibility of, again, that entrepreneur question from Gerber, how can I create a recurring revenue stream in this industry so that I have maximum value, and one day I pass on, I'm just going to use a goofy number, $1 million business to my kids. They can't refuse it. Now, if they do, that's fine. Somebody else is going to come and buy it.
Right.
And your kids get a big check when you go for the dirt nap, right?
That's right. Well, absolutely. So how do you handle the fact that as a business coach, I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there are going to be times where you need to tell the client some difficult truths.
Hmm.
And I would think that would be a difficult thing to navigate, because you're dealing with a customer and you have to tell them something that they need to hear,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And so how do you have to have a conversation with your client to let them, or do you have to wait till the trust is built to where they can hear that information? It's sort of like,
For myself as a business coach?
yeah. How do you?
Yeah. So first of all, that's my job. My job is to have redirect conversations with really smart people. You have to think about 100% of the people that we deal with are already strong leaders. They're already running a crew. They've already gone to the bank and gotten the money. They're running their family. They're already, these are already smart people. So one of the reasons that we take this kind of funny, casual approach is because I could make this dead boring and sound like a consultant and wear a suit and a tie, but that accomplishes nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we take this personable approach, right? Now, if you asked me this question and I was from Texas, I would say, sometimes you got to tell your neighbor, hey, my cow ate your cabbage. Like, it just happened. So you just tell them the truth, tell them up front and be blunt. As coaches, we have a lot of tools that we use and we train on them, right? There's question softeners. And actually, question softeners was on Seinfeld. I don't know if you remember this episode where they talked about the fact that you can say was it Seinfeld or Friends? Maybe people can message you later on. And if I started Friends,
we're dating ourselves here a little bit.
Yeah, I know, right? If I start a sentence with, I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying,
right,
that color green really doesn't work for you, is different than saying that color green doesn't work for you.
Right.
It's a question softener.
Yeah, that's probably a Seinfeld. That sounds like a Seinfeld thing.
Now, do you want me to get really dorky with you?
Sure, why not? This is Pestgeek Podcast. So.
Oh, there you go. Pestgeek Podcast meets Business Coach Geek. Dropping one for you. Here we go. So if you've got a pen and paper, I want you guys to write this down. It's a formula.
All right.
Now, this formula came from disaster PR recovery. I learned it from a woman who you call in when things have gone very, very bad in your big company. Okay. And you have to get in front of the media and you got to explain yourself yesterday.
Right.
And so this formula works. So the formula is D times V, the letter D times the letter V, plus FS, and then has to be greater than resistance.
Okay.
And I'm going to explain. Are you okay if we do this? Is that fine?
Oh, absolutely. I'm writing it down right now.
So this is a script that you can use to deliver very, very, like when I talk about bad press, like, hey, we're going to build a stadium where all these low income homes are, and here's how we're going to make you love it.
Right.
And so
I was thinking something a little bit more dramatic than that.
Oh, okay.
We'll go with that one. Right. So
I toned down the kind of situations she's been in. She is fantastic. This woman is like, she's like movie quality. You call her in when everything has hit the fan.
Right.
Anyways, I learned from her.
She's a fixer.
A fixer for sure. Yeah. So write this down. Yeah. It's the formula for tough conversations. So D stands for dissatisfaction.
Okay.
Dissatisfaction. The V stands for vision.
Okay.
FS is first steps.
First steps. Okay.
And the R is resistance.
Resistance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what I've done is I've just ruined watching the news for everybody, because the next time you hear a politician tell you something you really didn't want to hear, but you're surprised you're into it, it's because he or she's following that formula.
Okay. So give me the D one more time.
Dissatisfaction.
Dissatisfaction. Okay.
Times vision plus first steps overcomes resistance. Now let's use this. Tell me one
Okay.
of the vertebrates that causes the most fear for families.
I would say it, probably snakes has the biggest phobia. The phobia about snakes is truly epic. I mean, it's
Sure.
beyond the pale.
Okay. So let's deliver this as a difficult conversation to a family who is like Greenpeace t-shirt wearing.
Hmm.
You know how they vote, you
Right.
know their stance on things. You have to catch that snake, but you need to wear, sponges on your hands, and you have to let it go at this park at this time. And I want you to put a mouse with it, but not, no, maybe not a mouse. Feed
Right.
it some
Right.
vegetables, like that
Feed
kind
the
of people,
right. 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 I
right?
gotcha. Yep.
Okay. I don't know your industry, but I'm going to take a shot. And as I do it, as I give you this piece of news about what we need to do, and I want to get you as a customer, I want you to follow along how I go through dissatisfaction, vision, and first steps in order to lower your resistance.
Okay.
Okay, now I want you to imagine this. The family standing there, the little girl, their pink Greenpeace t-shirt. The dad used to work on the whaling ship or the anti-whaling ship. Like, this is the family, right?
Right. Right.
Okay. Hey guys, thanks for calling me out. I've had a look around the house and I can certainly see why the snakes are a problem. Did I see properly? Is it actually getting in the little girl's room? And you're going to say, no, the
Yeah.
pantry. It doesn't matter, right?
Right.
But yeah, is the snake actually, are you seeing snakes coming into your house?
Right. I am.
Okay. How long has that been happening?
2 days that we know of.
It's the worst part of that sentence, right, is
That we know of.
that we know of. Oh,
Right.
I'm getting goosebumps for you guys.
Right.
So we've had a snake problem for at least 2 days that we know of. What made you guys decide to finally call me? Because snakes are a serious problem.
My wife won't stay in the house anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. All right. Can I lay out a plan for how we would take care of this for you?
Sure.
Okay. Now, obviously, we don't want to hurt the snake.
Right.
And I think there's one, but when there's one, they got on the ark 2x2, so I would imagine there's.
Sure.
Right. So here's the treatment plan, the contingent, whatever plan. This is the plan that we're going to put in place. We're going to do this. We're going to block egress. We're going to okay. So those are that's the 4-step plan that we'd like to use so that your wife can come back in the house.
Right.
Where is she sleeping now, by the way?
Hotel.
Oh my. Okay.
Really a spa. It's
Well,
it's
listen,
not
maybe you
it's
don't. She
it's
might not
not
want this done at
well,
all.
it's not cheap. So
Yeah, she
but
might
we're
not want this.
motivated. We're motivated at this point.
Yeah, I understand. And sorry, we're joking about it, but it's
Right.
serious.
No,
The
no, it can
unknown.
be the phobias can be quite serious with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry because the unknown in your own home is the worst. That's
Yeah,
supposed to be your safe place, right?
that's right.
So
Absolutely.
here's what we're going to do. Steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do you mind if I tell you what the first steps are?
Sure.
Okay. So first, I need authorization to work on your property. And we've got forms for that, as you would expect. And then there's payment, things like that. But here's the other thing we need is this process is going to take another 2 days. Can I tell you why it takes 2 days?
Sure.
It takes 2 days because of A, B, and C. But I really wish we had talked maybe 3 days ago, because then we'd already be done and your wife would be home. How does that sound?
Sounds like we got to do it.
There you go. So, and I don't know your industry. I just made that up. But
Right.
did you catch where I was building the dissatisfaction?
Yeah, you were exploring what their problem was. So they owned their dissatisfaction. So they really knew they had a good concept of what their dissatisfaction was, and then
Right.
how you then took the steps to address those dissatisfaction concerns.
Yeah.
So
How
that
was
they
that, by the way?
signed on. I think it's a fascinating formula. I just think it's because you gave them a vision, you told them you're going to be able to solve that particular problem, and we're going to get this going. So I think I love those types of formulas because it kind of puts things into a kind of a mathematical things. You just
Certainty.
follow the
It gives you
steps, and it
certainty,
can be a
right?
nice quick outline for you. And so that's the kind of thing. I mean, I would suspect that's the sort of coaching that you're going to be giving people in terms of when you're
Mm,
evaluating their companies. Is there when they call you, is there like do they have to fill out some forms to help you understand what their company is, or is it done verbally? How does that
yeah.
process usually go?
It's really done verbally,
Okay.
because we want to understand the business from the business owner's viewpoint. I mean, you could probably use this again. What's their dissatisfaction? What's their vision? What's the first
Mm,
steps? Where are they seeing resistance? Sometimes we'll get on the phone with business owners, and one business owner wants to do it, wants to get a business coach, or wants to do marketing, or wants to put up signage, whatever it is. And the other partner, no, I don't want to do that. Why would we do that?
Yeah, that'd be tough. That would be
And you know
tough.
who? Let me, if you don't mind, I'm going to bring in another industry. Do you know who
Sure.
deals with that all the time? Young
God.
lawyers and old lawyers. Because when a young lawyer comes into a law firm and becomes a partner, they've got all these ideas. We need to market. We need to invest in this. We need to sponsor that team. We need to do all these things. And it's going to cost the company,
Money.
which comes out of profits.
Right. Which
And the
affects
old lawyer who's about to retire at the other end of the table says, well, I'm not going to say it, but
no.
translates in his head to a hard no.
Hard
We
no.
don't need it. We do just fine. That won't be necessary. Nope. 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 Because it's going to affect his or her check.
Right.
Right. So you've got differing levels of opinion. And sometimes it's a spouse who does that. Sometimes it's a business partner, whatever it is. So we start the first part verbally. And then, of course, as you get into business coaching, we do have to look at financials and operating metrics. And it all sounds very boring, but it's actually super exciting because I'm a geek.
Right.
My whole team, we're all geeks for this stuff. And then we follow our own systems for business reinvention that we apply on top of the business. And then you have that certainty.
Right.
Yeah.
So where do you, in terms of mindset, so your first recommendation was for people to listen to your podcast, and let's give another plug for that. Or you actually have two podcasts, so let's give a plug for both of them right here.
I do, but I guarantee you nobody here is going to listen to the second one.
Okay, well, you never know. We have some of our groups our group is pretty diverse, but by all means,
I'll tell you,
call.
But nobody should sip their coffee right now. It's going to come out their nose.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
You've been warned.
You've been warned, folks. Cabinet maker profit system.
Cabinet maker profit system. I hope you all got that. Okay.
Yeah. So that one, there's a long story there. If we ever have time, I'll tell you. But
Sure.
Profit Tool Belt is the main one. Profit Tool Belt deals with all trades, right? Because we're in a trade. You guys are in a trade. That's how why we reached out to you to be on the show, because this is tradespeople. It's typically overlooked by a lot of business improvement specialists like us.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be, because the recurring revenue side of this business, the need from a customer's viewpoint, the opportunity that you have is incredible. It's just there. And as people grab that, you can really build a great business in this industry. Really great.
I think that's certainly true. And I think if I was to just point out that the pinch points for our industry are, of course, labor, which really boils down to time. It's so intensive. I mean, if I had to do it over again, I would have gone into pest control. The pest control, as their revenue stream is far higher in, because they can use a chemical to do a lot of the work for them.
Right.
Whereas in the wildlife control, we have to, that was also from a state that required my eyeballs had to check the trap every day. And that was very time intensive. So I couldn't, they've since changed that, but a lot of other states where guys had much bigger businesses, they could allow the client to check the trap.
Okay.
So I was driving back to clients' houses every day, sometimes check empty traps, and it just burned through time. So you were burning up time that you couldn't be doing something else with, and it really shrunk your service area dramatically. That's now been changed. But I do think, but even still, the challenge for wildlife control, because there's not a pesticide that's going to catch that last animal for you. If you're dealing with raccoons, there are no pesticides registered for raccoons. And so, for probably a good reason, right? I mean, that'd be pretty toxic. But when we're dealing with, so you got to get that last animal or ensure that animal's out. You can't just say, well, the residual of that pesticide is going to kill that last bed bug or whatever the case may be. And plus, sometimes you have the challenge of people seeing the animal. They're like, well, I used to trap 20 years ago, and I can do this and blah, blah, blah. Why is this so much money? And so you have people devaluing the type of work that's done, or they will, or they'll just sort of fight you in different ways. And so they won't call, or they'll call real late, or they'll mess with your traps and that sort of thing. And so it's a weird field at times. It's
Yeah.
getting better. And I don't want to be too negative here. It's getting better partly because as we become less familiar with wildlife, people are more likely to listen to the wildlife control professional. But for those parts of the more rural America, they're still struggling, and they have the additional challenge of just not having the population. You have to have a certain population to
To
do the
stay busy.
work,
Yeah.
to sustain
And
it.
and yet and now I'm not a wildlife geek. So
Yeah.
what I say might rub people the wrong way, and I'm still going to say it.
Hmm.
I'm in business, and I'm in business to provide solutions. And if I provide those solutions, I'll get compensated for that. And it has to be solutions I believe in ethically
Right,
and
right,
morally.
right.
But if my customer, if you had a fish and chips shop and it's down by the beach and it's a super hot day and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, do you sell ice cream?" You go, "No, we're a fish and chip shop." They walk away. And then 2 minutes later, somebody else comes up and says, "Hey, do you guys sell ice cream?" You say, "No, just fish and chips." You see where I'm going with this, right?
Right. No, I'd see
But
that.
serve your customers' needs.
Yeah.
So if you have a wildlife control problem, let's say you've got a snake problem. Hey, while I'm here, I notice you have some other issues as well, which is probably what's bringing the snakes around. Now, it takes, you have to know how to. I would look to the client, which, somebody in this industry, to say, "Dom, this is how it would work, and this is how it wouldn't." The other good thing about me and my coaches is we're kind of stubborn. And we use something called polite persistence. We'll keep asking the question until one day we get on the meeting with the client. They're like, "Hey, listen, Rubino, we've got this idea. Snakes are showing up at the and we just hold our face. We're like, "Well, tell me this great idea." "Well, here it is. Snakes continue to come to this home because of X, Y, and Z. So here's what we're thinking." And we sit back quietly like, "That is a fantastic idea. When will you put that in place?"
Love it.
I
Yeah,
try to
without a
do that.
doubt.
I try
Without a
to
doubt.
convince my wife of those things. Like, this is why we need a boat, and it hasn't worked yet.
It
So
hasn't
it's
worked
not
yet.
a foolproof.
Don't give up. Don't
It's
give
not a
up.
foolproof system. It's not foolproof. But
That is awesome. So if I'd like to close out here, I guess with two final questions. The first one would be is if you had one characteristic that you think that the most successful clients you have that you've dealt with in terms of your own personal experience, what was one key characteristic or quality or attitude that was common amongst them that you think contributed to their success?
hmm. I, it's funny. So the first word was tenacity,
Okay.
but then I changed it in my head to like somebody who's a combination of frustrated but curious. Like I know I can make this business work, so I'm frustrated, but I can't figure out how. Which maybe tenacity is the better word. So
Yeah.
somewhere between those three words
Right.
is
So,
probably that sweet spot. And people
hmm,
know already. Other people are like, "Yeah, this was very interesting, but I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to be who I am." Fine. But there's one person out there listening who's like, "You know what? That's the direction I need."
right.
And they'll go march down that path however they need to, right?
And then is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important that you want to be sure that our audience gets from the services you provide to something that you want to them to take away that we haven't talked about? Want to give you that opportunity to be sure you put the bow
Yeah.
or cherry on that, whatever we haven't discussed.
Yeah. I want to. So I'm a big fan of entrepreneurship. I'm a big fan of being in business for yourself. And some people don't like the word entrepreneur first because it's horrible to spell. Hard word. Very hard to spell. But if
Right.
you're creating businesses, you're creating jobs. And that's what drives our economy,
Mhm.
flat out. And I know it's not Christmas time and it's not Thanksgiving, but the work you're doing, listening to this show now is so that you can build your business in the future and hire some
Right.
people. What you're doing is putting turkeys on the table at Thanksgiving.
That's right.
And what you're doing, like right now, is you're putting Christmas gifts under, people's trees. When you're stuck in traffic behind a tent trailer, that's your fault. You should be happy. You created jobs so people could buy a tent trailer and take their family camping. Like, everybody thinks business owners are bad people because
Right.
that's common. That's great to say in the media,
Right.
but we're the ones who create the jobs.
Yeah.
And we're a little bit different. And so sometimes it's hard to talk to your friends because they don't get what you're talking about.
Right.
You can't tell your team, hey, we're having a payroll issue this week. They will lose their minds. But if you're talking to another business person, it'll just be, oh, really? This is what we did in that situation. Or if you're talking to your coach, they're like, well, here's the 6 steps you need to take. You know, you just have to, you have to be very guarded. And that makes it hard for a business owner to grow, because you can't say all things to all people.
That's right.
You
Yeah,
know?
it's not always wise. You don't want to make your spouse have to bear all of it either. I think that's certainly, there's some wisdom there. You have to,
Yeah.
you want to be sure there's a separation there, and don't take everything home. And I do think the perspective, sometimes we're in our box, you need to be able to see it outside yourself and not have to worry about losing a friendship where someone may want to give you just what they think you want to hear rather
Yeah.
than what you need. And
Yeah.
so that can be very tough. Well, that's very important, business coach. So let's kind of go down this again. And so you've been listening to Dominic Rubino of 10X BLT. You can learn more about him. He's a head business coach dealing with contractors and business owners, and of course, pest control operators, wildlife control operators. And he's
Mm.
basically about the business of doing business and helping you get unstuck so you can
Yeah.
even be more successful in what you're doing by some of that self-analysis. You can find him, of course, at 10xblt.com. Let me give that for you again. It's sort of a 10x, just like the letter X, BLT, like bacon, lettuce, and
I hear that
tomato.com.
all the time. Yeah.
LinkedIn, although this is not a food shop, this is a business shop. And you can also listen to his podcast, and he strongly encourages to do that. If you're thinking about checking him out, he's encouraged you to listen to his podcast before you give him a
Yeah.
call to make sure you have a good fit. Those are his words, not mine. Profittoolbelt.com. That's the profit, Profit,
Yeah.
toolbelt.com, where he talks about running your business and being a better business professional. So go
I have
ahead.
one more thing. You just
Absolutely.
reminded me. I have a free training that we run.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Give that out.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, if anybody wants to join it, like if you enjoyed today and you want a little more detail, and obviously slides on the screen where you can take pictures of the slides and stuff, then join it. Just send me a text message. It's probably the fastest way.
Okay.
So my cell is 315-903-7853.
Okay.
And then just say the keyword training. Say the
Training.
keyword training. Just say training, and then I'll know. So 315
903
903 7853.
53. Put in the keyword training in the text.
Yeah. And
And when
then
is
on
that
the,
event occurring? Or do you have them
uh,
periodically?
yeah, we have them periodically. The next
Okay.
one is next week. So it
Okay.
depends. It doesn't matter when it comes out, because if we're waiting, then we'll just tell you that, come to the next
The
one,
future one. Okay. Yeah.
the
Because I
future
think
one.
we're going to be we may be a couple weeks out before this podcast
Okay. Yeah.
hits the film.
Oh,
So I don't want people being stuck and then, blaming you, or I don't want that. I don't want that happening. But if you're
sure.
constantly doing them, this is the way to do it. I can put that in the Chiron at the bottom of the
Yeah.
screen.
Thank you. Yeah, we do them on a regular basis. And so, maybe in August we're not going to do one, but we
Right.
will for sure do them before and after. So
Sure.
there's no shortage.
Well,
Yeah.
outstanding. Well, we really appreciate your time, Mr. Rubino. Well, thank you, have
Thanks,
it.
Stephen.
So, folks, you've been listening to Living the Wildlife Podcast. I'm Stephen Van Tassel, your host. Really glad to have you on board here. Do take a few moments, if you would, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Definitely reach out to me if you have questions, comments, yes, even criticisms. You can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Really glad to have you on board here. And of course, we call this Living the Wildlife. Why? Because we want you to live the wildlife, not be the wildlife. Take care, everybody.